whether you could understand all that, but what was happening in the 70s was we had a thing called the broad form deed, which allowed coal companies that owned the mineral rights beneath people's houses to basically destroy their house and their entire property to get at the coal seams. And this was legal under the broad form deed. And you know, you have a mountain culture of people, many of whom did have rifles and liked to hunt. And then you had a bulldozer coming in to strip this person's land without their permission. And there was violence. There was a particular case where a woman who was a widow, and her name is the Widow Combs, sat down in front of a bulldozer to prevent the coal companies from stripping her land. And the coal company security guards picked up this woman and carried her off. And there was a picture taken of this 80 or 90-year-old woman being hauled off to jail for sitting down in front of a bulldozer to protect her property. And that picture is very, very famous, and it went around the world. And when the legislators in Frankfurt, our state capital, saw that, they said, we have to do something about this. So they finally passed a law that took away the broad form deed, and now the coal companies cannot strip people's land without their permission. What's happening now is we've got mountaintop removal. The coal companies do own a lot of land, and they also lease land from land companies. And legally, they can do mountaintop removal now. Basically, what they do is, if this is a mountain, and you've got seams of coal in the mountain, they blow the entire top of the mountain off. So when they're done, it's just like a flat-topped mountain. In between, if you have two mountains, in between the two mountains is the valley, and at the bottom of the valley is a stream. They take the top of the mountain, blow it up, and then they take all that extra rock and dirt that's not the coal and dump it into the valley between the mountains. So if they chop off this mountain and chop off this mountain and put the waste in the middle, what you end up with is like a big flat mesa. Looks like something out in New Mexico. But the land that's being affected by this mountaintop removal these are very biologically diverse hardwood forests that are being flattened by mountaintop removal. The coal companies use an explosive material called ANFO, A-N-F-O. That's ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. It's basically diesel fuel and fertilizer. And some of you all might remember that Timothy McVeigh used that in Oklahoma City. Timothy McVeigh used 4,000 pounds of ANFO in the back of the Ryder rental truck. And you saw the pictures, it just completely blew the building apart. Every day in Appalachia, 4 million pounds of this ANFO are used, every day. It's a huge thing that's going on. It's not just one or two mountains. They're taking out entire mountain ranges. It's going on right now, mostly southern West Virginia. We've also got it in eastern Kentucky, and the very western part of the state of Virginia. They're doing mountaintop removal, and it's just getting started now in Tennessee. And there is a tremendous amount of citizen activism going on to stop mountaintop removal, but the problem is that these coal companies are very, very powerful. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of lawyers, they have a lot of politicians in their pocket because they donate tremendous amounts of money to their political campaigns. So what we're dealing with is citizens fighting against giant corporations, okay, that have lots of money and that own all the politicians. And you may have something similar to that going on here. Like what? Anybody give me some examples? Do you have a similar fight going on here? You have Walmart?
Walmart.
You have Walmart?
Yeah, but a little bit different, but they were trying to buy up the water in one of the towns and use it. Nestle was going to buy it and bottle it, but then it was going to interrupt the aquifer and all of the other people's water, so I think they threw it away.
Right.
I mean, they tell them go lost, get lost.
Yeah, it takes, I mean, people, are busy and they don't have time to go to the state capitol and lobby. But we have to, because the corporations have got all kinds of money and all kinds of lobbyists. And in Frankfurt, our state capital, if you go there, you'll see all kinds of lobbyists there representing, the casinos and the drug companies and so on, and the coal companies, and not very many just regular citizens. The interesting thing to me about the water, so we're paying $1.25 for a little bottle of spring water. And you look on the bottle, it almost always has a little mountain on the front, Okay, the most important natural resource that we've got in Appalachia is mountain water. And we're destroying it when we do mountaintop removal. Because, at the bottom of that valley where they dumped all the waste, that's the water, yeah. And, right now, I don't know what the situation is now in Atlanta or Charlotte, but at one point in the fall, they were down to, I think, a 30-day supply of water for the city of Atlanta, 5 million people. What would happen if Atlanta runs out of water? And what are they going to do? Truck it in on trucks for 5 million people? I mean, it's a severe drought for a city like Atlanta or Charlotte would be a gigantic catastrophe. I mean, it could be worse than Katrina. You can't have a city without water. So when I was in Rochester yesterday, they were saying, oh yeah, they're talking about taking water from the Great Lakes and moving it down south so that people in Atlanta can have water. And I was like, really need to watch that because it could happen, and they'll come and and take it. But the stupidest thing about mountaintop removal to me is that we are destroying the water supply. And I grew up in Cincinnati, which is on the Ohio River, and the Ohio River mostly comes out of the Appalachian Mountains. 3 million people get their drinking water from the Ohio River. And the water coming off these mine sites is dark, black, it's full of sediment, it's full of heavy metals, and all that good stuff goes into the Ohio River. And it's unbelievable, and they allow the coal companies to do it. And the cost for cleaning up the water is all paid for by the people who live downstream, not by the coal companies. So the coal industry is very, very effective at externalizing their costs onto the public. And of course, the coal goes to coal-fired power plants. We burn it for electricity, and then the pollution comes to Massachusetts, and then you get the acid rain and all the other things that are coming from Ohio and Indiana, and all these Kentucky and Tennessee that have all these coal-fired power plants. And of course, when a child here gets asthma because of a coal-fired power plant somewhere in Ohio, of course the coal industry is not paying for it. You all are. So there's lots of reasons why, even though this isn't going on directly here in Massachusetts, that it is affecting you. And also, if they can blow up mountains in Kentucky for coal, maybe sometime 10 years down the road they might find some mineral in the mountains here that they want. Maybe they can start, if they can blow up those mountains, they can blow them up here too. So really, we all need to work together to stop this mountaintop removal. It is really a very, very insane practice that's going on. So I've got a little slideshow that I'm going to do. It's about 20 minutes long. And I'm going to pass around a clipboard. This is my mailing list. You can just put your name and email on here. I send out something about once a month. And just kind of try and keep people informed with what's going on to